Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, welcome back to part two of our America Map 1830 to 1850 playthrough. In part one, we did a rapid expansion. We went out to Atlanta, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Kansas City, Oklahoma City. We connected up to Toledo, which was our one of our computer opponents' cities. We connected up to Pittsburgh, and we ended up, as you can see, finishing off our first four tasks. And now our focus is on mail. So this one is two-pronged. We have a big goal for moving a lot of packages. Packages are mail in this game. So moving a lot of mail and a big quarterly revenue goal in mail. But then beyond that, we also have to move over 6,000 people nonstop from Atlanta to Great Falls. Great Falls is way up in the northwest. So, and of course, Atlanta's down in the southeast. So this is about as long a haul as you can make on this map. Pretty close. Maybe Portland to Seattle might be a long one, or Portland to LA, but this is pretty close to the longest one. So what we're going to do is take advantage of that. We have two things there that you could think of them as conflicting, because we got to have a mail emphasis, then we need to have a passenger emphasis, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to build this big long line. As you can see, it would be, if we just went straight, it's buku bucks. But we're going to work on that line, get it down to a reasonable price, and we're going to run our line from Atlanta all the way up to Great Falls. But instead of saying, okay, let's do passengers right off the bat, we're going to take this in order, and we're going to emphasize mail to start with, and then we'll turn our attention to passengers. So right now we're going to set up this long line, and all we're doing is trying to make sure that we're not doing anything stupid like building giant tunnels when we don't need to. Like these mountains here, I think these are the Ozark Mountains. I'm not 100, my geography's not that good, but these mountains, we have a lot of nice little valleys in them, and we can miss the mountains themselves for the most part with just a few little curves. So we're making sure that we can kind of wind our way through those mountains rather than trying to just bull our way right through them. The same thing with these river crossings. We want to do intelligent river crossings with short bridges, not big, long, unnecessarily long bridges. And of course, we're going to make sure we avoid all the farms and mines and whatever up through there. And then we've got this last set of mountains up here near Great Falls, just to the east of Great Falls. And we're going to work our way around those, make sure we cross that river in an intelligent way, and have as straight a line as we can within reason, and keeping our costs under control. So that's what we're working on right now. But again, we're going to use that line for a dual purpose, and it's going to be it's just going to be great for us. But so we're going to make sure here, for example, this river, we're crossing it like 3 times. That's silly. So we're going to curve our line over a little bit and make sure we only cross that river 1 time. And we're double checking our line to see if it's just as good as it can be. It's still costing us like 1 over $1 million. I can't quite read that. 1.265. Okay, so almost $1.3 million to make that line. That sounds like we're toast. We're going to go 400 grand, but no problem. We're going to repay our bonds, and then we're going to open up bigger bonds. And now, through the magic of financing, we have plenty of money to work with. We have over $2 million that we can work with. So we went from $400,000 to $2 million that we can use. And now we will be able to put our station in Great Falls, finish off that line, make the connection, double track it, and have ourselves a nice, beautiful, long line that'll run between Atlanta and Great Falls. So we're going to start setting up our line from Atlanta to Great Falls, and we're still going to run automatic because it actually is a beer meat line, believe it or not. And there could be some city growth that we would, and you'll see later, we really do want to grow Great Falls. Now, we need to have people want to go to Great Falls, and you'll see later what we do to really help us with this. But for now, we're setting it up, and I'm setting it up in both directions. Now, our goal is to move eventually our goal will be to move passengers from Atlanta to Great Falls. So the ones coming back don't matter, but we want the revenue in both directions, and we don't need to have a whole bunch of trains queuing up in Atlanta waiting to go out when they can go out from both ends, because this is a long, long haul. It's going to take each train a long time to finish. So there I've goofed up because I didn't have my signal set, so that first train's got to go. He's on the wrong side of the track. But classic mistake there. So now I'm going to set my signals properly and make sure that I've got my double track going one way each way, and so that our trains will be on the correct side, and they won't bump into each other, or they won't stop one another from going. And I set this up originally with just some supply towers, minimal signals, and just planned on running X number of trains on it, and you'll see later that changes a little bit. But right now I'm setting up the supply towers. Just set up a string of supply towers going down through here to kind of divide it up to make sure they can get the supplies, and also they act as signals. So they set up new blocks for us on our train line. So we're using the towers basically in lieu of signals. So we've got the signals on the end to set the overall direction, but the towers give us the blocks that cause our trains to then spread out over the line nicely. So we had to kill that first Atlanta train, the one coming out of Atlanta, so now we're going to do it the other way around. And we're emphasizing mail in both directions because right now our focus is getting that mail revenue. We have to haul 200,000 packages. We have to get a huge quarterly revenue target, like 1.4 million in quarterly revenue in just mail. So that's a lot. So we've done a lot of things here in terms of growing these other cities and setting up lines that will give us some mail carrying, but now we're going to start emphasizing mail on our lines. So the way that works, basically, if I prioritize mail on these lines, then what it'll do in a station is, do I have any mail to carry? If I do, give me all of it. Then whatever else is left, I'll take whatever I can do. So in these cases of automatic lines, it'll take mail for however many boxcars it can do. Then it'll take the goods and passengers that are available to send off to the other city. And on the other end, it'll work the same way. Do I have any mail to carry? Grab that first, and then top me off with anything else that's out there available. So now I'm double checking for the 18th time my goals, and that freight number I'm not worried about because it'll grow as we continue to grow our cities and we continue to expand. I did notice that last one, which says we have to produce vegetables, and now I'm doing a search for vegetables, and I I really found it difficult to find the silly things. In fact, I know that I missed one over here in the east that I should have caught, but no matter, I finally find a couple. So I'm really, honestly, right now I'm on pause, and I'm just looking around for vegetables and just having a horrible time finding them. And if I recall correctly, at this point, I still haven't seen one. Now, I've actually passed over a couple, but I haven't actually spotted them myself, so they don't do me any good until I see them. So there's one. Where did I see one? There was a point here I recall thinking, are there vegetables on this map? I can't find them. There's one. Found one way over here in the southwest, way out of, not near anything. There's another one up there north of Denver, near Casper or whatever that city is. But there is one. There we go. Now I see one. There we go. See that one? There we go. Found one out there in the middle of the plains. That's a pretty good location. One way up to the north. So I found 4 of them. I'm like a kid at Easter from finding those eggs. And again, I know there's one over here, and I just don't. There it is. I see it. I can see it as I'm going over it here. It's a little northeast of Charlotte, but I don't think I ever saw it in the as I was doing this. But no matter, I settle on this one right there in the middle and decide to run it into several of my cities because the cities are growing to get big enough to take the vegetables. So this is much ado about nothing. This is just because I can't see. That's what it comes down to. I'm just going to have to clean my glasses more often or something. So I'm double checking to make sure. So Indianapolis needs vegetables, and that gives me an idea of the kind of the size we're looking at. It's a level 3 city. It'll take them. That means these other cities around here will probably take them as well. So we can run veggies into a number of these places. I contemplated running them into a warehouse and shipping them from the warehouse to multiple places. Decided that would actually be more complicated than just simply running them straight to a few of my cities. But the interesting thing is, even after all this, I still make a goof up. And see if you've spotted it yet. Once I get this line set up, see if you've spotted the goof up I make. And of course this line, because it wasn't in the initial plan, it's not going to be a pretty line. It's going to be expensive. It's going to have bridges or tunnels or whatever to jump over other lines. So it's not going to be pretty, but the good news is our economy is pretty strong now and we can afford to do this kind of stuff. So I'm just trying to make it at least reasonable looking and reasonably priced. And we'll run our veggies over to Indianapolis. And have you spotted my mistake yet? It's a doozy. Now, after all that, I decided I didn't like that big long line, and I'm actually going to jump on this line I already have built between Great Falls and Atlanta and use it to run down and deliver vegetables to Atlanta, because look at what a simple little line that is. It does jump in there and put some freight in there that you wouldn't necessarily want on this line. I don't think this was a great move on my part. I also didn't do a great job with this as far as putting in enough signals, because now if you're going to start, if you're going to take a line that's been built up with supply towers and you didn't put a lot of signals, you didn't put those interim signals in, now if you start adding other trains onto that line, it's going to get too crowded. So that was this is a play on my part. Not advised. Don't watch this and say, oh, I want to do that from now on. Don't do this. But this works. We're going to ship, and I've started using the John Bulls. I usually wait and do these mass updates, but because of the way the funds were and everything else, I started running the John Bulls on my when I built that big long Great Falls Atlanta line. That was the first time I used them. So I'm going to keep using them from here on out, and I'll do mass updates going down the road. Typically, I would just wait and do one big mass update, and switch over to a new train. Okay, so we've got some veggies going to Atlanta now. And we're going to figure out a way to run some veggies into Kansas City, which is more straightforward. And we'll go on from here and run some veggies down, I believe it's to Oklahoma City, and that'll be pretty much it for running the vegetables. I'm still wondering if you saw my mistake, because I haven't caught it myself yet in the gameplay. This is all after the fact, of course, so I know what it is now, but it was a doozy when I did it. So here we notice we have the opportunity to put a new business in Kansas City, and I'm in a quandary here because we're not running full-blown two city clusters here. We don't have warehouses feeding lots of goods, and our problem is we've got that textiles over in St. Louis, but over in our other side of Kansas City, in Oklahoma City, they already have a tailor. But we look at the available things to us, and rather than going out and trying to find logs or something and running them to Kansas City, we go ahead and put a tailor in Kansas City. It'll get textiles from St. Louis and do well. And besides that, I mean, it's ours. The one down in Oklahoma City doesn't belong to us, so if it doesn't get what it needs, that's just a shame, isn't it? So, and in fact, eventually we could starve it out and go down and buy it out and put something in there that we liked. So that's kind of what I did there, was just say, okay, clothier may not be, it may be one down there I could use in a different way from Oklahoma City and maybe turn these into a 3-city cluster or whatever, but that's not really where we are right now. So that's just low-hanging fruit, easy way to put a business in that we can make a profit on and not have to worry about it, and take that easy solution, which is put in the clothier that we know is going to get supplied by the textile business that's over in St. Louis. And by the way, I'm trying two different styles here. I ask you guys to comment on whether or not I should do Let's Plays. You know, the classic Let's Play where you literally play the game and talk about it while you play, and then you just stop. And those are it is challenging to do the narration, you know, the talking while you play sometimes. But once you get that down, it's really a super easy way to pump out these videos. And it's so much less work than going out and trying to, you know, figure out topics you want to do and making special cases and all that kind of stuff, the kind of things I do a lot of times. And so this particular series right here, this one 1830 to 1850 play, is actually a curious combination of actual commentary while I play on some of the parts and after the fact narration in other parts. So like right here, this is after the fact narration. I mean, I played this some time ago, this part we're looking at, and now I'm talking about it. Well, actually, I'm just talking right now. I'm not even talking about what I'm doing. Shame on me. But I am fixing a problem. The problem I have here is that Great Falls to Atlanta line was originally set up with just a few towers on it because they didn't plan on running too many trains on it. But now I'm starting to add things into it because it's such a convenient place to add a few things that I want to get in. Like here, I'm going to run veggies down to Nashville. And we don't have enough signals in there to keep from having traffic jams, so to speak. So I'm going through and starting to add signals back into that line. I did it down here because I know I picked that up. It actually is a problem even further to the west that I'll pick up on later and fix. But, you know, and that's an example of you know, you build something as a plan, and then it starts to change, and you have to be ready to make whatever adjustments you have to make. So like here, I wanted that to be like a big long line that was dedicated Atlanta to Great Falls, and really it should be. I should leave it alone, but I'm not here. I'm tacking some other things onto it, and so I have to adjust it and put more signals in so that all those trains can coexist on that line peacefully. Now, it's such a long line that it's really not an issue. And here I'm looking at going down and expanding our footprint in a different way. We're going to go down and hook up with Salt Lake City, or I'm sorry, Baker City, I think that is. And the reason for that is because we want to have a connection to that other competitor. He has stuff that goes all the way to Seattle. Now, if we have a connection, a way for our passengers and mail to get all the way from the East Coast all the way to Seattle, that's just going to increase the amount of mail that we get on that big long line from Atlanta to Great Falls, because that's the main connection from east to west. And the more that we can connect to cities over here in the west and the far east, far east as in east that's far away from here, not the far east, so it's like Portland, Maine, for example, and New York, the more we can connect to those cities and then connect to the ones in the West, even if it's not our line. A passenger, for example, who was in Portland, Maine and wanted to go to Seattle, Washington, could actually take our railroad. He could all he'd have to do is work his way to Atlanta, get on that Atlanta to Great Falls train, and then take this train over to Baker City and go from there to Seattle. So that does help you build up your overall traffic. The more you're connected and the more opportunities that passengers, and I'm fairly certain it happens for mail too. I can't swear to it, but I'm assuming it does here, and I really think it does, because our mail traffic just gets to be really big. A little spoiler alert here. It gets to be really good. And I do believe that part of the reason is because we now have that ability to connect East Coast to West Coast. So I'm not sure I'm explaining that very well, but the idea is that the more I'm connected, the more stations that are connected, the more passengers and mail have the opportunity to go through stations to further points further away, and you're just increasing the volume. And in our case, because again, we have that big long line between Great Falls and Atlanta, and that's the big hookup between east and west, that line is going to get the bulk of that traffic, and that's just what we want. And we want that now because we want the big mail traffic, because we're working on that. And later on, you'll see how we attack our passenger problem, which we still have to do even after we get through these two big hurdles with the packages and the quarterly revenue on mail. We still got a massive challenge in front of us to do passengers. So all this leads together into hopefully making that all work. And the other thing, the other reason making this connection is really want to grow Great Falls, because if we can grow Great Falls, then we can put, once we get it to 60,000, we can put an attraction in Great Falls, and that attraction will cause a 20% increase in the number of passengers who want to go to Great Falls. Think that might help us hit our passenger goals, moving 6,000 people from Atlanta to Great Falls? Yes, I think it will. So we're going to work on connecting up Baker City, and we're still doing our mail priority because we're still focusing on getting that mail done, but now we can start moving other items and goods where appropriate. In this case, it's not, because it's a beer-to-beer line, although the textiles might flow over there and help us out. So again, the more we can grow Great Falls, the better that'll be to get to that 60,000 mark and put it in an attraction. So we're going to hook up Baker City. We'll also hook up Salt Lake City here, and that way we're connected to all these things over to the East Coast and then down to the Southwest a little bit through Salt Lake City, and that'll be terrific. All right, so let's stop right here. This is a good place to stop, and the biggest reason being that I know what's coming here in a couple minutes, a system crash. Yes, I had a system crash and had to recover from it, so I know it's coming up, so we might as well cut off before it happens, and that way I can kind of seamlessly join everything back together, and through the magic of video editing, it'll be like nothing ever happened, and we'll be able to keep moving with this. But right here's a good place to stop, and we're making great progress. We've got a huge footprint now. We cover East Coast to West Coast. We have we're starting to move a ton of mail. We're starting to see a lot of mail moving on our system, and of course that's exactly what we want. And we're looking good at this point. So let's call it a day on this episode, and we'll pick this back up and continue our pursuit of those 200,000 packages and that huge quarterly revenue, that 1.4 million in quarterly revenue goal that we have for mail profit. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.